Welcome, everyone. It is a real pleasure to see you here today. I am Tarah Wheeler Van Vlack, and this is Defcon Unlocked, the Call for Proposals Special Edition. I have people here that I'm absolutely terrified to talk to in everyday life, so I'm going to have a slightly pasty grin on my face as I do this. I'd love to introduce everybody here today so that you can ask them your questions about how to get into DEFCON as a speaker. DEFCON's the biggest hacker conference in the world. It's awesome, a wonderful place, great family, and a lovely time. Try not to get arrested this year. So I would love to introduce you all. We have Erin, SecBarbie Jacobs, John Callas, Luna Lindsey, Marc Rogers, Nikita Kronenberg, Brad Haines, also known as Renderman. We've got Russ Rogers and Tamzen Cannoy. It is a pleasure to have you all here today, and I would absolutely love it if you would all take maybe 20, 30 seconds to introduce yourselves and tell everyone why you're here today. Somebody start.
Okay, I'll go first. Hi, I'm Marc Rogers, better known as Sea Junkie in DEFCON. I've been a goon at DEFCON for about 16 years. I'm part of the CFP review panel run by Nikita, who's also on here, and I'm also the guy who runs the Red Shirt Goons, or at least I am now.
I may as well go next. I'm Luna Lindsey, and I worked for 13 years in the IT field, although right now I'm a full-time writer of science fiction and other miscellaneous things. I've been to the past 7 DEFCONs, and last year I submitted my first DEFCON talk, which was summarily rejected, but I would like to be here to help other people in a similar position to me have more confidence, because I think all of us have something to say, and we should at least give it a try to submit a talk.
All right, I'm Erin, SecBarbie Jacobs. Been going to DEFCON for a long time. I'm in and around the con every single year and speak at multiple other cons and would love to help anybody out, male, female, toaster, banana, whatever.
I'm Brad Renderman Haines. I've spoken at the last, I lost count number of DEFCONs. I've been going since 1999. DEFCON 7 was my first one. Last year was actually my first rejection, which was deserved, but I enjoyed the break, actually, from all those years of speaking. Always looking to help out people get into things and hear new ideas. It's sometimes it's nice to hear someone other than myself speak.
And my name is Nikita, and I work for DEFCON and run the DEFCON CFP. I'm here because I would like to be able to help in any way I can with the community, in, if that means giving some advice or just being a listener and an ally. I'm here, so that's why I came today.
I am Tamzen Cannoy. I have been to DEFCON since number 7. I am part of the SHMOO group, and I help run SHMOOCon, another security conference.
Yeah, it looks like John's talking, but I don't hear him. My name is Russ Rogers. I am Chief of Operations at DEFCON now, filling some very large shoes from the past few years. Also on the CFP review board with Nikita. I've been with DEFCON since DEFCON 6 and been involved in a wide variety of areas there.
All right, I'm John Callas. I'm a security guy, software developer, also been going to DEFCON for many years and look forward to helping people get their own ideas and talks into the conference.
That is absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. And the reason, of course, that we're all here today is to help, especially if we possibly can, women and minorities feel welcome at DEFCON. This is a great time and a great place to have this discussion. And more than anything else, I think everybody really wants to portray the fact that you get into DEFCON because you have an awesome hack you want to talk about. And yet somehow it's a little strange. It seems like it's a little rougher for women and minorities to believe that they are available and that they are welcome in this great and loving community. And I would love it if someone would start the conversation off. I have a more general question, I think, from kind of a little bit of a noob out there. That's cool. And that is, what constitutes making a great DEFCON proposal? Actually, what I think he said was, what's the kind of proposal you can't turn down?
So there's a lot of ways to answer that question. obviously, if you come up with really new cutting-edge security content, you're going to be ahead of the pack because everyone wants to hear new stuff. But even the best and the most exciting content doesn't get through if you don't present it in a way that draws people. So a clear presentation that really lays out everything that you're talking about is easier way to read, and taking into account that as a CFP reviewer, we're literally sitting on a stack of thousands of talks, so we're probably not going to have a lot of time to read. We're going to scan read it. So if you can get that information across to us fast, clearly, and really sell your talk, tell us why it's cool, then you are going to stand a way better chance than the average person.
People ask me all the time, like, do you think this will be a good idea for a talk? And sometimes I'm hesitant to answer that without seeing the work in front of me. I've been thoroughly interested in some subjects when people, demonstrate a lot of passion in their pitch, but I still want more, and so does the review board. We're always seeking that approval of, like, do you think this is going to be a good talk? But I can tell you that if you think it's a good talk, it's going to show in the effort that you put in, and the effort shows us that more that we're looking for because it demonstrates your research as well as your passion. We want both of those. So if you were just to sum it all up, the outline is very important before the slide deck and after a well-written abstract, and that will get you in front of other people who aren't putting forth the passion and the effort.
The other thing I'd add is, don't be put off if your content isn't something that's completely cutting edge. If you can do a subject really well and explain a complex subject that everyone is interested in a way that's going to appeal to sort of medium technical all the way up to very highly technical people, there's always room for that. So I've seen talks where people have taken a past security vulnerability, something that's happened within the last 12 to 24 months, and they've done a phenomenal analysis of it. They've broken it down, they've laid it out, they've explained why it happened, they've explained what you need to do about it. And that kind of talk has a really good chance of getting through as well, because there's always a passion to know more about things out there that people maybe heard a little bit about but don't fully understand. And likewise, we always have room for 101 style talks, which are the talks where you take a complex subject and break it down for the newbies, because there are new people joining the conference all the time, and they need to be brought up to speed.
That is a wonderful point, and actually leads right into the next question here, which is to get started for your very first time at DEF CON, for a couple of the people that have had the experience of speaking there before, remember what it was like the first time they did it. What is it like speaking for the first time at DEF CON?
Drink heavily. That's usually the advice that I would start with.
Had this conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of stress there, and I think most of it's self-imposed because, 90 to 95% of the audience at DEF CON is, if they're in the room, it's because they want to hear what you have to say. And so you're starting off on the right foot to begin with. And so really all you have to do, if you can go up on stage and be yourself and be confident in the information you have, I think you're going to do great. It's really about communicating and relaxing, because the people that are really stressed out, they tend to talk quietly, they say a lot of ums, it drags out. But if you're really excited about it, like CJ and Nikita said, if this is something you're really into, then you're going to put the energy into it, and it's going to be evident. So if you can just relax and enjoy the experience, I think you'll do great. But you really do. A lot of people stress out the first time just because it's DEF CON, and if they really knew how relaxed everybody else is on the other end, they'd probably laugh about it.
Yeah.
There's one piece of advice I would give for new speakers, and that is, there are a ton of other conferences out there. There are lots of regional conferences that are desperate for great new content. And the first time I actually spoke was at a regional conference. I put together something that I thought was DEF CON worthy, but I took it to the smaller conference because I knew it'd be a smaller crowd of people, it felt less intimidating, and it was a lot smaller. I was able to do it. And then when I actually came to doing the same talk at DEF CON, it was way less intimidating because I'd already been through it. I already knew the kind of questions, and I felt much more confident.
I was going to add to, I'm sorry. I was going to add really quick to it. that one of the things from seeing a lot of talks at DEF CON and being with a lot of people that have done talks at DEF CON, prepare. Even if you get your talk accepted, prepare. Don't let being on stage at DEF CON be the first time that you're presenting that talk.
Sometimes some people are afraid to actually give their presentation before DEF CON because they don't want to, you know, release the big O day before the big day. And I would suggest that there are a lot of local hackerspaces and a lot of local DEF CON groups that you can go to that don't record, and you could give them a private showing, and that you could give your chance to practice in front of an audience where you have a little bit of expectation of, okay, this isn't going to go to CNN before I give my presentation at DEF CON. So that's another option.
I've got a question here, and this is from a woman who'd like to know, do you do any kind of accommodation or kind of quotas by gender? And if so, what does that look like?
I'm sorry, did you want to repeat that question to me one more time?
Sure. I've got a question here, and this is someone who would like to know if part of the reason why people aren't getting accepted to DEF CON that are women and minorities is because they're not being identified as such. And I think it's a question about quotas, essentially. Is there any kind of quota?
No, there is no quota within the CFP review board, and I think that the men and women on the review board would find a quota offensive to themselves as minorities. However, you know, I can't speak for other people, but I can say that this year on the DEF CON diversity panel, they did a survey that said other conferences were between 6 and 12% women, except for DEF CON. DEF CON is between 28 and 38%. The uptake of women in information security is about 16 to 17%. And if you believe their numbers are accurate, which I believe that they are, DEF CON is actually double the actual industry as far as speaker representation is concerned. So I think that we're doing good. Do we have enough? I don't know. We accept what merits it, and I think that also makes us really special.
As a CFP reviewer, I can tell you that it's the last thing on our minds. We are looking at content, and we're reviewing the content, and we're trying to work out, is this going to be a great draw? Is this something that someone else is covering? And often, is this something that's someone else has covered elsewhere in the stack of stuff that we're reviewing for that year? But there is nowhere on there where it identifies whether someone's a minority, or I don't think it even identifies what sex people are on there. It's just about the content.
Oh yes, and that's true. I mean, we do just look at the content, and it's later on that we really kind of focus on the bio of the person, but it's usually after we've made up our mind on the content. There have been times where we've had discussions in the review board where we've used the wrong pronouns about the submitter, and been like, oh, hey, no, that's actually a guy, or that's a girl, and you know, we don't think about those things first.
I would certainly agree with that as far as the CFPs that I've been on. You want good technical content. You want an entertaining talk. You want someone to be able to demonstrate in their presentation to you as part of the CFP that you think they can give an actually good talk. And there's always trends and fads, so don't give up if you're rejected, because it could be there were 12 talks on your subject this year because it's a hot subject.
I think that the notion of having smart people giving the talks is the best possible idea. I also remember really strongly that last year there were, I think, 101 speakers on main stages at DEF CON, and 3 of them were women, which I think is part of the reason we were having some of this conversation last year over the course of doing DEF CON. I also know there were a lot more women who felt comfortable in the Sky Talks, the smaller sessions. What do you all think could be done to make people more comfortable on the main stages?
I think that's quite...
Go ahead, Russ. Oh, I was just going to say, I don't think there's an easy answer for that, honestly. It's, you know, as Nikita said, we don't actually look much at the bios. It's all about content. And so, you know, we do get a lot of the same topics submitted every year. A lot of people don't realize how many submissions we get. I mean, it's not just a couple hundred. There are hundreds and hundreds of these things that come in like 4 or 5 different sorties And it's a huge mess. And so we go through, we look at the stuff, and as long as your content, honestly, it's all about content. And, you know, as CJ said earlier, not everything has to be cutting edge hacks, right? Because with the number of people that we have at DEF CON now, the attendance is so large, there's a wide swath of diversity. You know, there are programmatic people, there's hackers, there's people just getting into it, there's people interested in hacking cell phones and wireless and RF, there's people interested in writing exploits and hacking SAP and bank systems or health systems, or, you know, Render did a talk a couple years ago on airline systems. There's so much diversity that really none of the stuff that you mentioned really plays any part in our decision process at all. We encourage everybody to submit, because if you've got content and you have information, we want to hear about it. And like I said, if you can be confident about what you've done, you know, somebody said earlier, don't let this be your dry run getting up on stage at DEF CON. And there's always going to be trolls in the audience. There's nothing we can do about that except remove them as they present themselves. But have confidence in yourself. Know that we've got your back. And if you've got content, you're going to make a huge splash with the audience.
Yeah, you just have to remember that you are the reason that people are sitting there in that audience. They're there because they, you know, looked at your abstract and everything and saw something they wanted to hear about. If they think they know better, then I always, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm asking the question, well, why the heck aren't you up here then? You know, if you think you're so much better, then, well, you get up here and present.
To answer, Tarah, you originally, the first part of your question was more directed towards like a social disorder, which is, you know, the lack of women. That's something that DEF CON, you know, we work hard on. We've discussed that before. But your second part, which was really important to me that I wanted to address, was how to make people feel more comfortable on stage. And I wanted to point out that we have an excellent speaker operations team that will be there for every speaker, and especially the first-time speakers. They would love to give you the extra attention because they like to build that bond and relationship with you. So if you're a first-time speaker and you want to feel a little bit more comfortable on stage, and you're maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed that, you know, oh my gosh, I'm speaking at DEF CON, which, you know, none of the people at DEF CON, we don't have high egos. We're not like that. So just talk to the speaker operations team. They'll work with you, do dry runs if necessary, let you have time to set up your presentation, make sure everything works, everything like that. They're there for you. And I think that is how we try to make people comfortable on stage.
Listen, a couple of other things. Oh, sorry, please.
Oh, let me pause you really quick, Mouse, just so that folks know, because Mouse is just now joining us. This is Sandy Clark, also known as Mouse. Hi. She's an amazing and wonderful person. We're so thrilled to have her. She was able to get in just a smidgen late there, so that's wonderful. Mouse, please take it away.
As someone who was terrified to give my first talk, one of the things that I found essential, if you're not comfortable speaking in front of audiences and you haven't had a lot of experience doing this, you really do need to practice. I know that people don't want to spoil the spontaneity of it, and you don't want it to sound rote or rehearsed, but the fear goes away if you know what it is you're going to say next. And I would strongly recommend that you, when you develop your talk, that you get a group of friends together and you present it as though you were presenting it at the conference, and you have them time you, and you have them listen to how many times you say and you do that over and over again until you're comfortable with it, and that will make it much easier when you're in front of a large audience. Thanks.
The other thing I'd say is be your own best friend. Simplify things for you. Make sure, as everyone has said several times here, make sure you practice. Go to regional conferences, go to hacker groups, get a chance to get content out so that you really understand it. Maybe your first talk shouldn't be the O-Day, but if it is going to be the O-Day, take some friends into your trust circle and work with them. Try to avoid demos if you're a new speaker, because the demo gods are never kind. What you want to do is simplify.
Never demo.
simplify it as much as possible. Get everything set up before your talk. The less you have to worry about, the less panicked you're going to feel when you're dealing with that. Make sure the laptop's all there. The speaker ops team are phenomenal at making sure that all runs smoothly. Get engaged with them as quick as possible. Record, don't demo. Get everything, just leave nothing to chance. And then all you have to worry about is presenting the content, which hopefully you've already presented a few times before. And before you even know it, they'll be walking you off stage and asking you questions.
Yes, I want to reiterate what Marc and Sandy was saying, is that not only practicing speaking a lot, and once you've spoken a lot, it becomes easier, but I rehearse things. There isn't a talk that I do that I didn't rehearse at least once. And as you get better, your rehearsals can be a little looser because you know what you're doing. But people who perform well because they rehearse. And getting rid of things that can go wrong. You should look at it in terms of what I used to call anti-Murphy's Law. Look at the things that can't go wrong. And you want to make it so that if this can't go wrong, because if this goes wrong, my talk is dust, well then you shouldn't demo something. You should do a screen capture video of it. You should do something that shows what's going on, because we especially now live in a world where you can put stuff up on YouTube, you can refer people to the other videos, and you want to get them to the meat of the talk, and you want to have everything under your own control. And the more that you have things under your own control, the more confidence you'll have.
I wanted to add one little thing to making people comfortable in regards to DEFCON. We have this amazing thing of 22 years of archives that are available online. One of the easiest things to do, watch other people's talks. Watch the good ones, watch the bad ones, and learn. We have all of it available. It's amazing.
I'm actually going to add a thing to this. Normally I'm just asking the questions because these folks all have a profound amount more security experience than I do, but I'm actually going to add one little thing. You can't tell right now, but I'm absolutely terrified. There's so many things that can go wrong with everything that we're doing with all of these people, with a broadcast, with questions, and all of what John just told you about preparing in advance applies right here. But the biggest thing I could tell you is if you can just do it again and again in small tiny amounts repeatedly, you're going to be somebody who's a lot more comfortable right now. Just the fact that I've done this before lets me not be too frightened right now. And so I can do a bigger event like this one because I do smaller ones on an every week basis. And speaking at DEFCON, I would imagine is going to be very much like that. I've done other speeches before. I've done other security conferences. And last year at ShmooCon, everything that possibly could go wrong for me went wrong for me there. I tried, but it all just went wrong. No matter what I tried to do, everything didn't work. My electronics, nothing worked. Start 24 hours in advance if you have to, and it's okay. Go through the entire thing on stage if you're frightened, because I promise you there's like 6 conference organizers in this hangout. Every one of them wants to see you do well, and they'll let you get the extra practice time on stage. Promise.
I think, too, there's a consideration for people who aren't in attendance that you need to take into account, too, where, if you're doing a live demo or something like that, well, that isn't always easily captured in the video. Having a screen capture or video or something like that can be linked from your slides afterwards. As Erin was saying, there's this huge archive of things, but sometimes there's content that is lost because you weren't sitting right there. Of making sure that you've taken into consideration, the archive as well is something kind of important. It gives you that legacy of being able to present that information.
Plus, I found that when you screen cap a video, you can actually walk through that video, whereas when you're giving it live, you're performing the act of doing it instead of educating the audience on what you're doing. I find that screen cap videos are more effective at teaching the audience than a live demo, to be perfectly honest. Unless you're jackpotting an ATM, that's different.
This times 1,000. One of the worst things I've seen in so many talks is somebody goes, and now I'm going to deploy my Leet O'Day, and then he sits there typing at the console, and you're watching him, and for the next 5 minutes he's typing at the console. It's probably the most boring user experience possible.
And you can't see it.
Exactly.
You can't see it on the screen.
Right. And if you record it, then you can be watching this come up, people can be seeing it, and you can talk through it and explain what's going on. If they want the nitty-gritty, the command lines and stuff, you can give that to them as an appendix in the slide deck that you give afterwards.
Remember, too, that a presentation at DEF CON is well, in a way, it's salesmanship. Because this is your art, this is your work, and you are demonstrating, you are presenting this to people, and you want them to appreciate it. So you've got to do a little bit of social engineering in the way that you present it. You have to, it has to be something that is interesting for them to see and them to hear. And typing into a screen or a demo that doesn't work is not interesting. So you want to take care of everything that you possibly can in advance so that you give them a good show. You have to give them value for coming to hear your talk.
We just had actually somebody say specifically to Mouse, thank you for that notion of giving value, of doing the performance on stage. Jamisha Fisher is just really grateful to hear you talk about that, Mouse, especially since you've acknowledged that it's tough sometimes to be on stage. And we have another question here from Joseph Tracy, and this one is a question, and I would actually love if every single person here can just give a couple of sentences on this. This is the illusion of competency question, and it has to do with how do you handle the fear that your audience is more knowledgeable and more successful than you and will ask you questions that you can't answer.
I love it. That is one of the things that brings me back over and over again, is that people know more than I do, and I learn so much. You can, if someone brings up something that you weren't aware of, either you can include them in and have them inform the rest of the audience, or certainly take it offline, and then you're going to learn a whole lot more. It's always beneficial to share information. That's what DEF CON started, and that's the whole reason it exists.
I gave a talk a couple of years ago about, as Russ mentioned, about air traffic control security. The whole point of the talk was, I don't know everything about this, but I found evidence that concerns me. I want to be wrong. I'm reaching out to, this community of people to see, hey, if you know more than me, please prove me wrong. I want to prove air traffic control is safe. If not, then okay, I'm onto something. You have access to things. Let's fix this. So in that particular case, I was wanting and hoping that people would know more than me, and be able to prove me wrong. And so far they haven't, which is even more terrifying.
Hey, Render, as a question for you, and just kind of for the audience, when you did that talk, you had a large group of people up at the stage afterwards. So how many people were you able to connect with that were interested in the same topic of research that you've kept tabs on, and you guys exchange information now, and you've kind of improved your own research based on those conversations?
There was quite the scrum of people that came up. A lot of them were immediately off the bat saying, okay, you're full of crap, and that's not possible, and it was all about, okay, well, show me. I would love to give a follow-up talk and say, no, you're wrong. I was wrong. Here's why, which I think would be kind of awesome. But a lot of these people would come up and say, you're full of crap, and never follow it up. Or they say, well, it's classified. Well, that doesn't help. A lot of people did keep in touch, but due to NDAs or not wanting to basically give me any sort of acknowledgement that I may be right, haven't kept up a lot. And interestingly, 2 years after that, I've now found documentation where they've actually gone and done threat assessments based on what I presented, and their threat matrix is pretty much exactly what I had presented, and but theirs was 2 years later. So it's that whole idea of, well, just because I don't know everything about this doesn't mean I'm not onto something. And trying to get that dialogue going, the only way I could find to do it was to be public and go out there and say, hey, prove me wrong. I want to be wrong. And a lot of these people just, I think when they really looked into it, saw what I was seeing and just clammed right up.
Let's ask everybody else if you could too. Please do continue on with a question about how you handle the fear that everybody in the audience will know more than you and will ask you questions that point out that you don't know all you hope that you would.
So I've been doing this for 17 or so years now. I've given countless talks. I've done television interviews. I still suffer from that anxiety. When I get up on stage, there's always this nagging fear in my head that this is imposter syndrome, that I'm bluffing my way through this and somebody's going to come up with questions that are going to expose me as being a fraud. It has not happened. If you are grounded in your subject and you know it and you're passionate about it, there is always going to be value in you presenting it. And I can count on one hand the number of times I've had people ask me questions that I couldn't answer that were, real tough, punching holes in what I was talking type questions. Every single one of them, because of the nature of DEF CON, has turned into a conversation afterwards where I've gone into the speaker room or I've gone and hung out in the corridor with the guy and we've talked about it, and it's led to phenomenal changes to my research and even partnerships with other researchers. So don't fear it, welcome it, and if that awkward question comes, embrace it and just deal with it. And you're going to find the audience will support you as well. Well, this is not an environment where people support hostile attacks against speakers. I have seen people try to criticize and tear down speakers, and I have seen the audience rebel and support the speaker and say, you know what, you're not up on stage presenting. Give them time to finish what they're saying, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I would agree with CJ on the audience. There's this quote, and I don't know who it's attributed to, either Jack Lemmon or Kevin Spacey, to the effect of, if you're lucky enough to have done well, it's your responsibility to send the elevator back down to give everybody else a lift back up. And that is what our audience can be like. They will say, hey, no, I actually know better, and I'm going to sit and I will talk to you about it. And they want to exchange that information. They want you to be correct. They want you to say, well, I'm sorry, your assumption is actually not correct because you're not having the whole pieces of the puzzle. I have this piece, you don't have it. Let's put it together correctly. And I think our audience is very much like that and don't necessarily want to tear you down or tear a speaker down. But in the cases that it does happen, I would say that haters are going to hate, players are going to play, and just shake it off.
I love the fact that you just did a Taylor Swift thing there. I mean, speaking as someone from an audience perspective, this past year there was a talk about airplanes and air traffic control that was basically indirectly calling out my research and others, saying, no, you're full of crap, and here's why. But it was a talk that was a lot of assertions, not a lot of evidence. But at the same time, as someone in the audience that I thought, knew more or could offer a different perspective, it was a case of, as Nikita was saying, that they're up there, let them speak, let them do their piece. We can take this, offline separately and continue the conversation and have, I'm looking at potentially doing a talk where I'm going to do a rebuttal against him. So have this multi-year conversation in public, and I think that's a very constructive and healthy way of approaching these problems, as opposed to standing out there whipping a whiskey bottle at them and calling them crazy or something. Whiskey bottle is full, in which case you're gifting it to them.
Well, scientists and hackers seldom care about being wrong. They like being wrong because that means we're closer to the truth, honestly. And if I'm completely honest about my own fears when I get up on stage and speak, I've been doing this for years, a long time. And, if I get up on the stage in front of Nikita or CJ or Mouse or SecBarbie or any of my other friends, I always feel kind of silly because I always look up to them. And what you find out after a lot of conversations is you all look up to each other. So if you can make yourself comfortable and stop and have a conversation, you realize everybody in the field that's doing these kinds of research, very, very approachable. They all want the right answer. And it's okay to feel butterflies, but you shouldn't be so terrified that you don't give it a shot, because you may have one thing that's going to change the industry for 2015. I would encourage you to submit.
Mm-hmm. And what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? You make a mistake, you fail once. Well, failure builds character. Fall 7 times, stand up 8, and don't give up before the magic happens. We say all these phrases, but they're true. So I mean,
and there's no one person who is the ultimate expert on any subject. That's why we're all getting together and talking about all this stuff. It's sharing back and forth. I mean, there's no shame in saying, I don't know, I wasn't investigating that aspect. Oh, that's a cool thing. I didn't think of that. There's no shame in that.
Right. I was going to add the one other component that, and kind of builds upon what Marc was saying. One of the things that we don't talk about with this whole, and these putty fingers, imposter syndrome, is we don't talk about embracing the audience. And that's one of the beauties I've always thought that we had at DEF CON, was the fact that the audience is going to push you to do better. It's going to push you to make sure your research is solid. So going back to what we said in the beginning of this entire conversation, go up there, make sure you know what you're going to say, make sure you have your own facts, and then like what Tamzen just was saying, right, there's absolutely no shame in saying what you don't know. And to kind of go to what Brenda was saying about having this multi-year dialogue, I mean, that's a beautiful way of learning and constructing these ideas over time. So I think it's fantastic, and I do think the audience should be embraced as a check and balance for everybody. Of course, not the trolls and the idiots, but the ones that do come up after and continue the conversation.
Yeah, I want to add that the most biggest sign that you know what you're talking about is, in fact, that you're a little nervous about it, because that is, in fact, a sign that you're thinking about all the aspects of it. And most of the people who are in the audience who are also experts are also going to be people who are going to say, it's your time on stage, I'll talk to them afterwards. And a response like, I wasn't aware of that, that's something new that I haven't heard of, let's have a drink and talk about it in the bar, is in fact the best way that you could handle somebody who's even being a troll to you.
All right, if everybody has kind of given their thoughts on how to handle the notion of trolls and people questioning your intelligence as a speaker, I would absolutely love to move on to a very important question that someone just asked about security at DEF CON, and I'm totally thrilled to see all of operations for DEF CON here today. So there's some questions about what it's like and what you would do if you feel like you're being treated inappropriately, especially as a woman or a young woman. What do you do? Where do you go? Is there special resources? And if you're there in a public capacity, how do you avoid problems?
CJ, you want to do that?
So I was going to say, it's a great question. DEF CON has a phenomenal community. It's one of the things that keeps me coming back every year. It's the reason I volunteer. It's the reason everyone else I work with volunteers. That said, you're always going to find challenges in an environment like this, especially in an environment like Las Vegas. And problems happen. Find a DEF CON staff member and tell them. We have people within DEF CON who are trained for dealing with issues. We have people who have incredibly diverse life experience who will do everything they can to help you, to make sure you're connected to the right people. Many situations are things that we can't deal with, so they will connect you to the authorities, they'll connect you to the hotel, but most importantly, they will support you to make sure you are talking to the right person and that you're helped all the way through. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you have a great time. I'll give you an example of one sort of very common incident that we have to deal with, and it's alcohol. You get a lot of people drink too much, they lose control. We had a young lady who passed out in the restrooms last year at DEF CON. She lost her friends. She was alone in that sense. She'd come to Vegas with these people. It must have been a terrifying situation for her. We provided support in making sure that she felt secure. We stayed with her, and we sent our staff out into the conference and to understand how amazing finding her friends were. We're talking about like 16,000+ people, we found her friends, and we managed to get them to her, and we managed to get her taken care of, and her friends took her off and looked after her. That is the ultimate win situation for me and my team, because that way somebody's taken care of, they're kept safe, and nothing bad happens. They have a good experience. The worst case scenario is where you see someone wheeled off and taken in an ambulance and taken to the hospital or some situation like that. We don't like to see that happen. So what I would say, kind of reiterating all this, is if you have any sort of situation, if you feel uncomfortable, if someone is making you feel uncomfortable, if you feel like you're being harassed, find a DEFCON staff member and they will help you. But also lean on the community, because DEFCON has a very protective community. Turn to someone and tell them, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling threatened, help me out, because you will find an infinite number of people there who are willing to help you out.
And as a speaker, may I rest for just a sec?
Please.
So this question was phrased in, what do you do if you're being harassed or something like that? I can say from my own experience and from the experience of watching a lot of talks that I've never seen a female speaker harassed on stage.
I think it was more a general question, though.
Yeah. So that isn't a fear that one needs to have. I think is my point. It just isn't a problem. Anyway, that's all.
I'd also like to point out that sorry, Russ.
No, go for it, please.
I'd like to point out that, as CJ said, we're 20,000 people. I don't think anybody's got an accurate count. Just pure statistics. There's always going to be a certain amount of jackassery and idiots in and amongst that crowd. Unfortunately, they're the ones that do the things that the press gloms onto and do the things that we feel bad about. But very much by and large, the rest of people, if you are feeling harassed, if you're having problems or see somebody that needs some help, telling pretty much anyone, they will jump to attention. I've seen a few times where you see someone off in the corner that looks like they had too much, or somebody where there's something going on, and you just leap to attention and find staff, find things, and it is taken care of. There's been times where I've seen people being harassed and just challenging that person and the harasser and saying, hey, not cool, this isn't what we're about. A lot of these trolls don't like being confronted like that. And pretty much anybody else around there is going to be a fairly safe person. We take care of our own. Sometimes emotionally, sometimes kinetically. We'll sort this out as however we have to.
I have behaved in ways at DEFCON which I will never have ever behaved in any other venue, situation, or social group ever, because I feel safe at DEFCON and able to do that because I feel, and it's not just the goons, but I feel the community has my back as well.
I was going to, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off really quick because I know you're going to say amazing things, so I'm going to get mine in really fast. Is that for the past 2 years at DEFCON, I've done a backup buddy hotline that it hasn't gotten a lot of traction, but it was there. And so I think kind of speaking to the community of what's going on, and this wasn't just for females, this is for anybody. I mean, I think it's terrifying as a first-year person. I mean, I was a first-year person a long time ago at Alexis Park, and I was terrified of everybody. And whether I was male or female, it just is an overwhelming experience, especially now at the 16 to 20,000 person number that it is now. So there is that community support. But one of the other things I think that needs to be said, and this is just me being SecBarbie and being kind of a jackass about things, but I think we all have to put on our I'm going to a bar mentality. Anytime you're not in the talks at DEFCON, especially as it's getting into the nighttime, treat it like you're going to a bar. It's the same rules are going to apply. Go to your bouncers or goons, find a goon or somebody that you trust, and you know what, if you're overserved or whatnot, I hope you have a buddy system. And if not, there are other ventures. So, and now I'm going to let Marc go ahead and rock it.
Thanks. The Goon Squad is one of the most diverse teams within DEF CON. In fact, it's something that I'm going to be changing going forward to make it even more diverse, because there are so many different groups of people, and often people who are feeling unsafe or feeling intimidated, it's better for them to talk to someone they can relate to and feel safe with than to somebody who potentially could be just as intimidating as the person who's causing the problem. We have women on every single shift. We do not have enough women on every single shift. I will be the first to say that. And I am always on the lookout for more female volunteers who want to join me and basically provide assistance, because only the thing that made DEF CON strong is that it's the community, and the Goons always represented the community. That's why we were always able to deal with incidents in the hotel way better than hotel security or any of the law enforcement who would come along, because attendees listen to us. They listen to us because we are the community. Now, that community needs to be more diverse, and that means the team needs to be more diverse. So that's something I am actually constantly working on, and I'll use this as an opportunity to put a shout out. If you're interested in working a very thankless job that involves a ton of hours and lots of walking, but is incredibly rewarding because you get a chance to really put something into the community and you'll get such a great result back, come and talk to me. Send messages to Tarah, send messages to me, send messages to Russ, send messages to any DEF CON staffer, because we need more people in the entire conference, to be honest, and we need more women throughout the whole thing. And I want to do anything I can to make people feel safe and to make DEF CON a safer environment. So I'm also interested in hearing suggestions.
Tarah, I do want to jump in just real quick and say this isn't just a gender thing. This is a diversity thing all the way around. It really doesn't matter who you are to us. There are tons of hackers that are intimidated and frightened by us that could contribute so much to the conference. And I don't care who your God is or where you come from, what you were born as, any of that. I just don't care. Your value doesn't come from that. Your value comes from the ideas and the stuff you have in your head and your ability to help us out. That's all we care about. So if we can keep this a safe environment, and I think you'll find over the next few years that we are continuing to evolve as our attendance has gotten larger and larger. You know, we have to make changes. You know, things can't stay the same as they always do. We will never get the AP days back, and I think all of us that were there we will welcome that with open arms, that we're not going back to the AP days. None of us can really handle it anymore. So let's just evolve. Let's move forward. And, you know, none of us are getting any younger, so let's bring in some new blood.
Thank you so very, very much for that. I appreciate it. It's tough to talk about these things, but I think that part of the reason why we're doing this, and it's kind of funny, this is supposed to be specifically for specific questions to help people prepare their proposals for DEF CON, but it's sort of turning into, again, a lot of the same questions that I think people want reassurance on. And I know that one of those questions, and I've had somebody email me this again too, a lot of these are really embarrassing questions for people to ask. They're not asking them in public. They're sending them privately or finding a way to get the word to me. And one of these questions is, how do I feel like I belong? They don't feel like they belong there, and it's so scary to walk into 16,000 people, even though you know you need to be there. And I mean, I remember that the reason I got in was one of Lost's contests. I traipsed up to the microphone and said, how do I join one of these hacker teams? And he said, stand there, they will find you. and they did, and I made great friends, amazing connections. I am one of the psychoholics, as you can see right here. Hello, guys, what's up? And I would love it if you would talk about at what moment you first felt like you belonged in this community at DEF CON.
So I'll tell you a story about my first experience with hacker conventions. Actually, the very first conference I went to was Hope. And
That's mine too.
Hope, and DEF CON was like a short second. Anyway, I flew to the US as a young hacker on bail, being pursued by law enforcement because of some stupid things I'd done, and I convinced my lawyer that the best way for me to get advice and understand how to deal with things was for me to go and talk to more experienced people in the US. And so I packed my bags and I flew to the US, and I was completely alone. I'd never been in an environment like this at all, ever. Sorry, excuse me. The UK doesn't have a hacking scene like the US did. It's much more fragmented and much smaller. And so much of what I had heard of in the UK was kind of like hearing about the bright lights of Hollywood. I was completely enthralled, but also absolutely terrified. From the very moment I walked into the conference, I felt like I belonged. People were talking to me. I understood what motivated them. The conversations I had blew my mind because I found a whole group of people who thought like I did, who were passionate about the same things I did, and were concerned about the same things I was. And it literally it sucked me in. And it was literally the same year I volunteered to become staff, and I actually started working both conferences. I was security for Hope and security for Defcon. And I haven't looked back since. And it's that same sense of belonging that brings me back every single time. And it is changing. The fact that there is so much money involved in security now, we're seeing a different community spring up around it. But that core, that sense of belonging is there. And what I would say to anyone who is kind of feeling lost is reach out to that. Talk to somebody. And you will find that connection straight away.
I'll go ahead and jump in. I often still don't feel like I belong at DEF CON, but I've felt more and more comfortable the more DEF CONs I attend. And I got to say that last series of talks, pretty much all of his talks, he gives this same type of spiel about how he came into feeling like he belonged at DEF CON. And they're very inspirational. You can go find them on YouTube. I think one of them was a DEF CON 101 talk. I think one was a closing ceremonies talk or an opening ceremonies talk, something like that. And basically I've been trying out what he says, which is jump in and start doing something. Everybody knows something that even the most expert people you think and admire, they don't know it, and you do. And that means you have something to contribute. There's someone there who's willing to listen to you. There's someone there who will have a discussion with you. I've gotten really involved in some of the puzzles every year, and I don't win, and I've just got to be okay with that. I've written short stories for the short story competition. Just find something and do it. Talk to people. There's 20,000 people there. You're better than some of them and worse than others. Don't compare yourself to people. Just jump in and do stuff. Have fun. So.
Advice I've been giving to a bunch of young women who are very interested in attending, and it's like, okay, where do I even start? DEF CON is now so big and is actually so many conferences within conferences. Pick an area. If you decide you want to go to a lot of talks, do that. If you decide maybe you'd like to look at lock picking, or you're interested in the contests, coffee, beer, there's barbecue, there is somebody who's there for a thing that you will have an interest in. And you can't assimilate all of it. It is total sensory overload. Find an area, particularly the first time you go, and maybe kind of hunker down there and look at some of the other places. But there's so much that's going on, you will find something that you will really, really find fascinating.
I think it's important to note, back at DEF CON 6, we had 800 to 1,000 people, I believe. And when the group is that small, at the time I felt like it was humongous. I didn't know there were that many people like me in the entire world. But you look at it now and the thousands and thousands of people that are there, and what we're trying to do, and we spend a lot of time doing this, and CJ and Nikita, Mouse, all these people can kind of attest to this, is we're starting to build that mini conference mentality where walk around and see what's there. There's lockpicking, there's wireless, there's the Hack Fortress, there's CTF, there's you've got tamper evident. I mean, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of things to do. So you walk around and you find people. It's like Tarah said, she met Lost. And Lost brought a lot of us together that hadn't met before. It's one of those things. You find people that have a similar interest. You find somebody you can talk to, and slowly your network will start to grow. the knowledge level will grow. You'll start participating, and before you know it, at least you feel like you belong to this little tribe within DEF CON. And if you can do that, then you have roots within the conference, and that's really all it takes. Find your little cubbyhole at DEF CON, and then once you're comfortable, you can start putting out feelers and find other places to explore, new knowledge places.
Yes, I would definitely agree with Russ there, and I think of DEF CON kind of like the Grand Central Station of hacker conferences. Well, not really of conferences, but hacker people, and we're all going somewhere. We just may not be going in the same direction, but we're all got some place to go, and you can meet up, get the right ticket, and go to the right place with somebody who wants to share that journey with you. And I think that we all connect in that hub, and then we go out and we have these amazing experiences at other places, other conferences, SHMU, DerbyCon, B-Sides, all of these cons. And if you're looking to try to find more people, DEF CON is a place where everybody wants to they want to go on a journey right now. And there's someone out there somewhere that you can connect with that'll take you on the one you want to be.
Yeah, except that when they're on that journey, most people want to be inside the train as opposed to us that strap ourselves outside.
Actually, that's a really good point, is that I was going to bring this up. I just did some quick math that I didn't want to do. And I've gone now for 13 years, but I wanted to say that the first 3 years that I ever went to DEF CON, this goes to the whole be patient. The first 3 years I didn't talk to, I was terrified. I mean, I was super shy, believe it or not, introverted, and was petrified of everybody. So, but like you said, the more you go, you end up finding people, and it's amazing. It'll just take one time, one night, one talk, one person, and it'll all click. I mean, the guy, to this day, I met this guy one time at one DEF CON, and he brought me into a whole group of people. He's never been to another DEF CON since. I wish he was, because I would buy him beers, but that's all it took for me.
That's a really good point, SecBarbie, because unfortunately, the hacker community rewards extroverts, and a lot of hackers are introverts, and so it can make an environment that's that big really frightening. But there's places for introverts, and there's room for introverts, and we need all types of hackers, and so I just simply second all what everyone has said. You just simply have to go and find the people who are doing the thing that you're interested in and join with them, because there's always room for one more.
Can I ask everybody here to, I've got several different people, and a lot of them are all asking a question. It's kind of a variant on the same thing, which is are my people there? One question is there a veterans group there? Another one was, is there an Alcoholics Anonymous group there? Which I happen to know the answer to that is yes, actually. It's apparently pretty cool. So what are some of all of the crazy groups of people that you can just start naming off? Everybody throw them in there. Just name off the kinds of people that show up there.
I'm actually a veteran. Obviously, there's feds, there's veterans, you've got the hackers, the freakers, you've got people that want to pick locks and do physical security. You guys want to jump in?
You have body hacking, you have artists, you have musicians, you have people who are interested in hacking brain or health.
There's
survivors.
cosplay, there's parents, there's kids, there's people who want to teach other people's kids.
There's preppers and survivalists, automotive engineering hackers, chemical hackers. There's physicists. There's a little physicist group that meets up and do stuff. There's logic problem solvers, of which Lost is the king. Tamper evidence.
Kids of DEF CON is so cool. Awesome little baby hackers.
Yep.
There's a DEF CON run. The head of the speaker department runs a DEF CON run, and he sets it up every year. And I don't know why you would, but they get up and they run through Vegas every year.
There's a cycling too. So they do like 50 miles. There's also the the DEF CON shoot, if you're interested in guns and automatic weapons.
And
you know what it takes to make a group at DEF CON? 2 people. If you want to make a group, put a shout out and ask, hey, I'm interested in this. Is there anyone else interested in this?
Yes, that's what it takes to make a conspiracy.
in other conferences, we have a concept called a birds of a feather, and we're going to see this kind of BOF concept popping up more and more in DEF CON, I think, as well. Bringing people together to talk about whatever subjects they want. And do you know what it takes to get a space to have your group in at DEF CON? All it takes is asking. Send in a request, and DEF CON will provide you with a space to throw a party. They'll provide you with a space to do a workshop. All of this stuff can happen. All you have to do is ask.
We forgot there's also food hacking.
By the way, this coming year, we're planning on having a biohacking village. So everything you want, all these food hacking, biochemical, body modification, all in one place. So.
Oh, QueerCon. Don't anybody forget QueerCon.
Oh my gosh,
God, do they have the best party at all of DEF CON? Seriously. Best party.
You know, there's the coffee competition, there's the beer competition, there's the toxic barbecue.
But you don't have to drink. I'm not a heavy drinker, and so for my first talk, though it's tradition that you do a shot, I had somebody be my designated drinker.
I think that's a really good point.
Yep, and at the same time, when they do the parties in the evening, it's mentioned that there is an AA group. Well, the AA group throws their own party. They have a space where you can go and hang out and chat and listen to music and have fun, and there's no alcohol, but there's plenty of soft drinks. So because I mean, you're in Vegas, and so drinks are everywhere. So I find a lot of my friends who are dry find that quite intimidating, and they're like, how can I come to Vegas and feel safe and not feel like I'm going to be pressured into drinking? Well, it's absolutely there, and you absolutely do not have to drink. You don't have to drink for the talks. You don't have to drink for anything. Anyone who tells you otherwise is completely wrong.
There's even a group for people that are interested in vaping. How to do hardware upgrades and all that kind of stuff. There's a whole group for it on Facebook, and these are all people that go to DEF CON, and they work on their rigs all year long and bring several with them to show off. I mean, it's interesting. Any way that we can hack anything, there are people that are talking about it. And if a group does not exist and you're interested in it, bring it up and let's get it started. We can find a space for anybody.
The DEF CON forums is a good avenue to do that as well. I often find it's an underused resource. Not a lot of people talk about it, and a lot of people don't do forums or whatever, but I think it's a great resource, and a lot of people, when they ask, how do I start doing this? How do I start this contest? How do I get this involved? And we usually tell them, start off the forums first, because you will find like-minded individuals to join your mission, and you will show that you're putting these ideas together, you're making a plan and stuff like that, which would, make us feel that you're serious about the endeavor and grant you the space or the resources or staff or whatever it is that might be needed. I say go to the forums. And BT does spend a lot of time on there, and he is active on the forums and reads a lot of stuff that's going on there.
I have a great question here, and thank you all so much for naming all those awesome people that you could go hang out with. I have a really cool question, and this one is from Linus T. He wants to know, how many people who attend DEF CON are cyber criminals? Don't everybody shout at once.
I don't think that's actually right.
I don't think anyone can answer that question. I mean, the laws are so different in so many countries that one thing that could be considered an innocent piece of research in one country could be considered criminal in another.
I would prefer not to speculate on that, as I'm unaware if I have all the facts.
It's classified.
I love you, Nikita.
I was going to say, if they make cryptography illegal, we'll all be criminals.
Breach it. All right, it was a fun question. I thought I'd throw that one in there. I've got another great question now that has come up. It is about the DEF CON forums, and Nikita brought them up specifically. I know that there are a lot of folks that feel like forums in general can be problematic and not very welcoming. I've got to be honest. I personally don't go on the DEF CON forums because I've had a couple of things there where I didn't feel as welcome as I could. How is moderating happening, and if we get like lots more people, will that help solve the problem?
I would have to answer the same way I just did before, that I wouldn't be able to speculate on that because I don't really have all the facts on how they're modding the forums these days. I know that when I was more active on it, there's a strict rules, guidelines set on the forums that says, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, you're not allowed to flame or troll or anything participants of the forum. And I would say that, I don't want to do anything specific, but that I would reference that that rule sheet on the forums first. And if you're finding that a forum member is making you feel unwelcome, that you refer to those rules and discuss it with a moderator.
And to Nikita's point, there are a phenomenal group of moderators there, and I'll single one out in particular. The Cotman is an amazing diplomat, and you'll find him jumping into all sorts of conversations where people are being unfair or causing issues. If you're on the forums and you feel in trouble, reach out to Cotman or one of the other moderators, and he will definitely be there to help.
I have to second that. I'm not even very active on the forums, and I had some interactions with him this last year. He's very open to listening, very open to you. He really wants to know your perspective, and he's very patient and, like you said, very diplomatic. So.
Yeah, and we should make it clear that when those kind of incidents happen, that information, if those individuals are interested, is passed straight up to leadership. And so we get involved in the conversation if it makes them comfortable to try and help resolve whatever the issue may be.
John, were you going to say something? You unmuted.
No, sorry, I crashed.
Oh, no, not at all. Okay, sounds good. All right, I've got a great question here, and I would love to specifically ask Tamzen to lead off with it. How do other conferences, other hacker conferences, handle some of the issues that we've been talking about today? I know Tamzen runs CFP and is part of CFP for ShmooCon, which is sort of the hacker family con. How do other conferences handle this?
We're in an interesting situation. I think we have a lot of very visible women who run tons and tons of our areas of our conference. I think that makes us be a little more visible, but frankly, from the beginning, we've controlled the size of the conference, and our one rule is no assholes. If you are an asshole, we will, and we have, kick you out and tell you can't come back. And we have noticed that because of basically that rule and the fact that Heidi and I and Noise and so many other people are very visible in running around and doing projectors and registration and everything, we have a lot of guys just, they see someone misbehaving, they will put the kibosh on it and they'll say, you just can't do that here, that's not this kind of con.
There's some other conference organizer types in here too. I know the people who've been involved, I think in B-Sides, is that right? Anyone else have any answers?
So I've been a conference organizer in quite a few different conferences, in Hope, which was another major hacker conference, but also on the professional side, I was one of the conference organizers for RSA Europe. I can tell you that it's the community that makes it what it is and that drives a lot of it. So in RSA Europe, you have a conference which has a really strong set of policies and rules. It's a professional InfoSec conference. And Hope, you have a completely chaotic hacker conference which has got almost no rules or anything. I felt safer in Hope than I ever did in RSA Europe. And it's because it's the community. The professional community, to me, feels less welcoming and less diverse than the community I find in the real hacker community. And I found the same thing. I went to my first ShmooCon this year as well, and it was just like being part of a family again. And that, for me, is awesome. And it's why I will always now choose hacker conferences first above any of the big professional InfoSec conferences. And I kind of wonder how we can maybe take some of this out and use it to help the bigger InfoSec conferences so that they change and maybe become a little bit more welcoming and more like hacker conferences.
So, I know this isn't about Defcon, and I don't work for DerbyCon. I don't have any affiliation with their organization or their leadership or anything like that. But I do want to take a moment to give them props because one thing that I had discussion with some of their administrative staff, or I guess the administrative staff, they said that the heart, like, of any of their rules, obligations to the community, etc., they know that the root of it is not to be a taint. And whenever their rules, it says like that, don't be a taint. And I have to respect them for that because I think that's a good duty, I think.
Just one quick semi-related point. This week we were discussing the difference between a con and a conference and trying to put our finger on what the difference is. And the definition we came up with is a con is a gathering of people who are enthusiastic about the topic, as opposed to a conference where maybe it's a business gathering, maybe not, but the individuals are not personally communalizing around that topic. Interesting.
Okay, great. I would love to ask another question here, and I've got it. Yes. This is a question. Who among you is willing to give feedback before someone submits their proposal? And I have a feeling that what we need to do more is ask the question, how do you get feedback on your DEF CON CFP if it's the first time you've submitted it? Before you submit it.
Just email talks@defcon.org and say that you would like to put some feelers out about your submission before you submit the official work, and that maybe you would like to have a sidebar with either myself or another CFP review board member. And I can tell you that the predominant amount of review board members are willing to have a sidebar with you to discuss your submission before you put it through the proper channels. And they will disclose that fact so that there is no bias on voting.
And I would also, I second everything Nikita just said there and say, certainly for me, and I'm pretty sure any of my colleagues on the CFP review board, you can find out who we are on the DEF CON website. Reach out to us. Reach out to me. Come and talk to me. If you see me, I live in the Bay Area. If you see me around the Bay Area, any of the local conferences or hangouts, come and chat to me. I will be happy to give you all the advice I can. I can't help your talk go through the process because that's not fair, but I can advise you on the kind of things I think are good and the kind of things I think were bad. And I'd be also willing to reach out and talk to a bunch of the other folks in the CFP and see what they think. And we will do our best to give you the advice to help you stand the best chance of getting through.
All right, and I'm going to bring something up here. Mouse, could you actually talk a little bit about that collaboration point that you brought up? I would love to have you kind of add on to the end of that.
Well, for people who have never submitted a talk before or never spoken at a conference before, one way that can make it easier to get your proposal accepted is if you're working with someone who does have that experience. Collaboration with someone who has presented is often the best introduction to eventually giving your own presentations, and certainly someone who already knows how the system works is more likely to be able to have a good template for writing a proposal and for getting a talk submitted. So collaboration with someone can give you an edge.
Yeah, they might be able to give you a little bit of a heads up on what did not work for them and a better idea of the feedback they got from the review board. So maybe you can avoid some of the pitfalls that they endured as well, trying to get to the point that they got up on stage.
I think one of the things, John, I think you're unmuted again. Okay, there we go. I think one of the things that a lot of people are nervous about is they would love to know and meet some of the people that are their real heroes. So I'm going to ask John and Render if you could start this off for me, please. The question was phrased, are any of you famous people scary to talk to? And what I would like to ask is, how do people approach you in such a way that it is respectful and yet they are still awesome and get a chance to benefit from your wisdom?
There's there's famous people around here? Where?
Mm-hmm.
None of us. I mean, anybody that. I mean, there are those of us that are well known, but I don't think any of us have a huge ego that figure we're famous or anything like that. You won't see us with entourages with bodyguards with no neck and stuff like that. It's one of my favorite lines is what's a movie about a hacker? It's a guy doing his laundry. It's we are regular people. You can just come up and say, hi, I'd like to talk to you about this. At ShmooCon this past a couple of weeks ago, I was chatting with a whole bunch of people. It was their first InfoSec con, chatting with them for half an hour before they realized who I was. And it was weird because you could see the shift. It's like, oh my God, RenderMan. And I'm like, whoa, wait, right there. What changed? We've been talking for the last half hour. Just because you now know who I am, what changed? Nothing. We've been sitting here having a conversation. Just, if you're coming up, you see somebody you want to chat with, say, hey, can I join the conversation? Would you like a beer? I really like that last part. But don't be intimidated. Anybody that has got such a big ego that they won't talk to you probably isn't worth dealing with.
Yeah, those aren't the kind of people that are successful within DEFCON typically. As a community, we tend to kind of push those people to the outside edges just because we don't want to deal with that either. We came from the exact same place. I mean, we all originate from nerds and hackers and that sort of thing, and we don't want to deal with that kind of personality either. So they tend to get pushed out to the outside.
I was going to say, to kind of go on what Render was saying, I thought ShmooCon was amazing this year because I actually met probably 50 brand new spanking people that I had no idea who they were. They didn't go to any other cons. They were brand new, and that was amazing. And I guess part of it is that I just was another person to talk to at ShmooCon. So it was a really kind of cool conversation. But overall, yeah, we're all people. And most of us, as long as you're not being a jerk about it, are totally going to talk to you and have a good time.
Yeah, I would say come up and say hi. That there are relatively few people who are in this group who really actually have a large ego. And we like to talk to people. I mean, we also want to learn about things that are new to us. So if you've got something new you want to hear about, really, we do want to hear about it.
It never ceases to amaze me how approachable folks are at DEF CON. And it's something I just never can get my head around, the idea that people find it intimidating to come and talk to some of us. I had someone come up to me and just talking, and then when she realized who I was and what I do, she actually said to me, "Why are you even talking to me?" I said, I wasn't aware there was a rule about who I was supposed to talk to. And we had a phenomenal conversation. But it goes on. One of my favorite people at DEF CON was Steve Wozniak. He used to be a regular attendee. He hasn't been the last couple of years because he's just got such a crazy schedule now. But he always used to be there in the audience. You go up and chat to him. And for me, it just blew my mind because here's a guy who's my absolute hero, and yet he's just completely down to earth. Everyone who is worth anyone in the community is like that.
And don't assume that the famous person isn't intimidated to talk to you, because I've had that happen to me personally a few times, where some people have come up to me and said, "Oh, I follow you on Twitter, or I know that you run the DEF CON papers," and I'm like, "Are you serious? Because you submitted this, and I'm absolutely in awe of you, and I wanted to talk to you, but you make me nervous." So I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of that where we're human, we're just people.
And the only thing I would add to that is simply in the DEF CON environment, be aware that they might be on their way to go someplace. They may have to talk. They're not brushing you off if they say no, but here's my email address. I'd love to talk to you about this later. or come to this party, I'll be there, or something like that. It's like, everybody is pretty busy at DEF CON.
All right, thank you so very much for this. I would love it if each of you would just take 1 minute, and given some of the questions that you've gotten today, I think you've got kind of a better sense of sometimes how intimidating DEF CON is, but also how excited people are about it. And I would love it if you would all take just several sentences and say what you hope people take away from this. If everybody can do that, that would be awesome. Somebody jump on it.
So I would say probably the biggest thing I hope people take away from that is that DEF CON is approachable, and people are approachable, and that you get out of it what you put into it. Dive in. Don't be scared. Go and talk to somebody and connect, because once you make that one connection, it's like a neural network. It's just going to spread and expand, and before you know it, you're going to be at the center of your own universe in DEF CON with hundreds of people to talk to and connect to. Do something. Be involved. Participate.
Yeah, DEF CON specifically is very much what you make of it. If you don't participate, you just go to talks and then retreat back to your hotel room and do nothing, you're going to think, well, why did I come here? Because all the cool stuff is outside the talks, really. It's the talks are just sort of the excuse for the rest of us to get together and party and do stuff and all the villages and so many other things. I mean, I've met people that I consider family now, that are like brothers from another mother kind of situation, that just have to be sitting next to them, started a conversation, and it becomes amazing. I mean, most of the people here, actually everybody here, I would consider family and trust them just as much. And that, outside of really scary religions or military kind of groups, you don't find that kind of feeling in most places. That camaraderie, that shared experience that is absolutely amazing. And I think more people need to be part of it. I want a bigger family. Come on in and introduce yourself and join up.
I'd just like to point out, I've noticed just from my experience of people I've met at DEF CON and heard speaking at DEF CON, I think any of us who are the brainy neophile types who are going to show up at DEF CON, I think a lot of us are probably battling social anxiety. I know I am most of the time. And so keeping that in mind both for yourself and for the other people that you're talking to can make you feel comfortable and maybe make you feel a little bit more like you're wanted and that you can participate. Realizing that we all started somewhere and we're all going somewhere. Just try to take deep breaths and relax, and like everyone's been saying, jump in and try to do something. Maybe it's submit a CFP, maybe it's participating in one of the villages, maybe it's starting your own thing, maybe it's just showing up at the room parties and trying to chat with people. So that's what I gotta say is, if you're scared, just remember a lot of other people are scared too.
If I was to sum up my closing thoughts or whatever, and more ball pits, Erin, I saw that. Some of the problems that we've discussed on this panel, I think we all want to face, and none of us have a perfect solution to it. And, I'm not an expert on sociological strategy. I'm just one woman who works for one hacker conference, and I try to do that with integrity. There's nothing I can do with inherent exclusion in society as a whole, but what I can do is not stand for it in whatever is in my control. And I try to meet that obligation. I think DEF CON does too. And I think if we all do that individually and we act with grace and support our fellow hackers, then we all win.
And if DEF CON intimidates you, start small. Go to another conference, find your local DC group somewhere, find your local hacker space, your maker space. There's coding clubs. There's all kinds of things, that the people who are like us, who are makers and doers and thinkers and problem solvers, hang out in. They are around, and then maybe you can get a small group of your friends that you make that way, and you all come to DEF CON together and have a fabulous time.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Russ.
I was just going to say, if you come to Defcon and you don't participate, then you're really doing yourself a huge disservice. And those of us that have been going for years, for like the last 5 or 6 years, we harp on this constantly. You get out of Defcon what you put into it, and it's not a cop out. It's the absolute truth. I can't stress it enough. If you try, if you put yourself at risk to make these social connections, to have these conversations, you're going to be rewarded so much for that. And if you need a helping hand, if you need somebody to talk to, just to kind of maybe an introduction to just one person in an area that you're interested in, you can approach anybody that's on this call, and I'm willing to bet any one of them will walk you over and do the introduction for you, because we're all very approachable. We're all exactly what you are. I mean, we love the same kinds of things. We have this antisocial bit of us, but we also love the fact that there's so many people and so much potential here. So put yourself at risk. Give it a shot. Try it. And if you need help, let us know.
Absolutely.
I think a thread that... Go ahead, Sandy.
I was just going to say that the point I'd like people to take away from this is that if you're listening to this webcast right now, it's because you belong at DEF CON. The fact that you have this interest at all means you're one of us. Now just figure out which part of the 16,000 of us you want to hang with the most.
Not just DEF CON, though, but SmooCon, DerbyCon,
HackerCon,
any conference.
Yes. Well, it's all the same family. But
think,
the fact that you're interested in this means you're one of us already.
And I think that a thread that has gone through a lot of what we've said over and over again is that you're not alone in having worries and anxieties and fears and whatever, and that people who also have them are the people who are on this panel right now. We have exactly the same sorts of worries and anxieties and fears, and we know exactly the way you feel because we share them.
Erin?
I was hoping you guys would be able to just glaze over me since you guys said everything amazing already. I guess the only thing I can just kind of contribute is that if you're going to come to DEF CON, just be awesome, be a positive influence, and people will love you.
All right, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here at the end. I love the family part of this, and I'm going to agree wholeheartedly with Render on this. In an unrelated situation, I'm actually dealing with some problems, and we had a tweet asking some questions about what do I do if I'm, doxxed or hacked for being part of this family. And I would say that of the people that I know and love at DEF CON are the ones that I call for help when I'm afraid about stuff like that, not the ones that I'm afraid of. Render, a couple of nights ago, helped me lock my home network down. I mean, I feel safe and secure with these people, and these are the ones that you go to for help, the ones that you trust and the ones that you care about. There's always problems in every community, but honestly, these people are the ones that you should be listening to, talking to, and trusting because they care and they will help you. This has been unbelievable and awesome. Before we get off today, I would love to let you all know that DEF CON Unlocked is not just DEF CON Unlocked anymore. It is InfoSec Unlocked. As a result of conversations we've been having over the last year, especially with Luna and with Tamzen, we're talking not just about DEF CON in future, but about all hacker conferences and the need to improve and increase diversity and voices at every single one of the places that we go to meet up with our hacker buddies. So please do feel free to visit IS Unlocked, that is Unlocked, the little tiny pun in your URL for you, isunlocked.com, and there are announcements for upcoming hacker conventions, especially those that are friendly to diverse speakers. ShmooCon sticks right up there at the top. We've got a DEF CON announcement there too. We would love to have you there, and I need to very much thank our amazing volunteer team. I'm going to thank Ada Zebra, I'm going to thank Tyler Walker and Emily Peed for doing an amazing volunteer job of setting that up. They're there to create a conference and participation across the entire family of hacker conferences. We love having you all as part of this, and I'm so grateful to be part of this family. Thank you all so very, very much. You're going to see this talk come out as smaller clips and as one long conference as we go. Thank you all very, very much for being here today. Again, I'm going to let everyone know we had Erin, SecBarbie Jacobs, John Callas, Luna Lindsey, Marc Rogers, Nikita Kronenberg, We had Renderman or Brad Haines, Russ Rogers, Mouse, or Sandy Clark, and Tamzen Cannoy. It's been such a pleasure with you all. Thank you very much, and have a lovely, lovely day.
Thanks.